Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Faster my good evening, it's 5:30. This is Update for Thursday 27th of July 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the Isle of Man. Background to that news and sport and business and Sea Watch and travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, a fifth Romanian beggar gets jail. Petition to save large vehicle overnight parking. What is adverse possession in land ownership? The women's T20 cricket in 2 international tournaments. And our wonderful Manx rivers.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Fastamai Chanel Suku.
Fastamai. Kamalmore residential home will close in the next 2 years. Manx Care says plans to construct a new home to replace it will no longer be going ahead. A fifth Romanian national has been jailed today after being caught begging on the streets of Douglas. And the cost of an Isle of Man variant British passport will rise in October. The changes will apply to all new applications, renewals and replacement passports. In international news, July's been so warm around the world that scientists are already confident it's the hottest month ever. The head of the UN's declared that we're in an era of global boiling. A man who shot dead a police officer while in custody has been handed a rare whole-life prison sentence. And half-year profits at British Gas have risen almost 900% as families struggled with soaring bills over the last 6 months. Those were your headlines. News at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Jeremiah, thank you. Chanel from the Ronaldsway Met Office. There's no wind warning in operation for the North Irish Sea. State of sea is slight and this evening dry and cloudy with some bright intervals. A light to moderate westerly backing southwesterly with lots of blue sky too. Going to be dry this evening, down to 14 through the night, and tomorrow dry with sunny intervals, a light to moderate southwesterly backing southerly and freshening by this afternoon. Top temperature 18 for Friday, dry overnight, minimum temperature 14 into Southern Agricultural Show Day 1. Saturday will be dry in a fresh to strong southwesterly, daylight maximum 18. Tide on the way back in, high waters 7:05, sunset 27 minutes past 9, low tide 16 minutes before 2 a.m, sunrise 24 minutes past 5, and the morning high tide at 19 minutes to 8.
Manx Glass and Glazing can produce bespoke splashbacks for your kitchen in any colours. Speak to the team on 674 573.
A petition's been created calling for an end to proposals to make it an offence to park large vehicles such as motorhomes and big vans on speed-restricted roads overnight. The story from Lewis Foster.
Large vehicles taking up spaces in residential areas have been a concern for a while. Last year, Manx Radio spoke to these residents in Pulrose about how the issue was affecting them.
It causes some arguments sometimes because people don't know who's parking where, and sometimes they park on the pavement.
It's really difficult to get into our garden because of how many vans are in the back area and everything.
Trucks everywhere, caravans everywhere, people don't know how to park properly.
Under these new plans, a £60 fixed penalty notice could be issued from the police, local authority and the Department of Infrastructure staff if you're found parking overnight between 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. Monday to Friday and all day Saturday and Sunday. The department has asked local authorities for their opinions on where the restrictions should be. But whilst it's been called for by some residents, it's also hitting resistance from others. Hence the petition, which at the point of writing has gained just shy of 1,500 signatures. Its creator, Keith Pringle, says it will affect many vehicle types that are over 1.87 metres in height or 5.5 metres in length. Within that scope, he says, will be work vans, some 4x4s, SUVs and camper vans. vans. The petition asks, what can you do about it? Well, Mr Pringle is asking people to contact their MHK with concerns, saying the DOI are eager to get this legislation passed as early as autumn. You can find a link to the petition at manxradio.com.
A fifth Romanian national has been jailed after being caught begging on the streets of Douglas. Here's Tessa Hawley.
Dimitri Maruta, of no fixed abode, admitted an offence of vagrancy at Douglas Courthouse today. The 52-year-old was arrested on Saturday after being spotted asking for money on Duke Street. Police were called by a witness at 8:30 that evening who'd seen Maruta wheeling a shopping trolley through the street and milling about unusually. The Romanian then sat down on the pavement outside a shop, pulled a blanket over his legs and placed his hat in front of him. He then got out a sign which read, "I am at your mercy, please help me. I am paying the rent, may God bless you." 3 people were seen giving him money. He was arrested and taken to police headquarters and then to Nobles Hospital for medical treatment. Magistrates were told he was seen on CCTV talking to 4 other Romanians who were also arrested for vagrancy. They were jailed on Tuesday. You can find the full details of their cases at manxradio.com. The court was also told Maruta was also arrested on the 5th of July for vagrancy, but had been de-arrested by police and taken to the sea terminal with instructions to leave the island. His advocate said he'd come here with the belief he could gain employment, but no job had materialised, adding he found he had nowhere to go. Jailing Maruta, who has no previous convictions, for 21 days. Magistrates told him it is unfortunate that you did not take the first warning and get back on the boat when asked to do so by police. Imposing a 5-year exclusion order, the chair of the bench added, this is something that will not be tolerated by the Isle of Man. Arrangements will be made for his removal from the island on his release from custody at the direction of the Chief Constable.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
In the UK, recent high-profile incidents have highlighted the polluted state of many rivers across. In contrast, an ongoing testing regime by officers from DEFRA shows Manx rivers to be in good health. Last year, 98% were classified as excellent in terms of chemical status. Dr. Michelle Haywood's a member of the Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture.
We're kind of really doing well. There is some work to be done around reducing nutrient runoff in certain locations, but that's ongoing with landowners, basically to reduce things like runoff from agricultural land to protect the watercourses. You'll be aware there have been a couple of incidents in the last couple of years where people have poured chemicals and other pollutants down surface water drains, particularly in residential areas, not knowing that those drains discharge into watercourses. So we have had dead fish in a couple of the glens where it's been traced back to residential areas. And so, we like to remind people not to pour anything down the drains because some pollutants can kill the fish and the invertebrates. We're not starting to talk hosepipe bans or reducing the water flow in rivers, which was something that happened last year. So there's a certain amount of water that is allowed to flow into rivers away from the reservoirs in order to keep them going. And last year, because we were short on water, Manx Utilities took the difficult decision to reduce the amount of water going in. So we had the fisheries officers were in rivers rescuing stranded fish out of pools of water where the water connection was no longer there. That obviously isn't the case this year, so that's good news. Sometimes with very wet weather, what you see is more material washing into rivers, and we particularly see that having an impact on bathing water. And so you'll start to see that as material washes through the rivers, it affects the bathing water quality. But the good news so far this year is that bathing water quality has remained excellent, and the levels of fecal organisms that we measure in bathing water has remained really, really low. So the beaches are in really good state as well.
The Isle of Man women's T20 cricket squad will compete in 2 international tournaments from this weekend. They'll take part in a bilateral series against Austria from the 31st of July, and then in the Women's Continental Cup in Romania Romania from Friday to Sunday next week. Team captain Alanya Thorpe and teammate Lucy Barnett say the team's raring to go.
I think we're all really excited to go out. The bulk of the squad has stayed the same. We've had a few people come in and a few people go out because of injuries and unavailability and things like that. But I think we're all just really excited to go out and get stuck in again, especially now that we've trained together for over a year. And I think one of the advantages we've got as a squad is that we do get to spend quite a lot of time together, whereas in a bigger country, I mean, one of the countries we're playing is Greece, for example. I can't imagine that squads in other countries get to spend quite as much time together, getting to know each other and training as much as we do.
I think getting an understanding of what players in your team can do and being able to support what they can do is a really strong advantage we have.
As a squad, we've only played 4 international matches, and I think we walked away from that and thought about what we'd done well, but also what we wanted to improve on. And I think one of the things we've all done is gone away and played a lot of cricket locally. Lots of us have played senior cricket as well as the women's softball on a Monday, and we're all really, really keen to learn and improve. And I think Spain was a real eye-opener for quite a lot of us. I mean, we've got lots of players in our squad who play lots of different sports, and I think when we went to Spain we all suddenly realised how much there is about this game that we've still got to learn. And rather than backing away and going, oh, actually this is a bit too much of a challenge, everybody's gone, right, okay, we want to do this, we want to learn, we want to get better.
Now we've got quite a young squad with quite a lot of young players, and there's players coming through playing in the junior boys section, which will just strengthen the team in coming years.
I think it's just that experience of game time. You can't really put a price on it when you're then going out and playing international cricket.
I think as a team it's going out there, getting some wins and seeing whereabouts our development is against other nations and getting that T20 ranking that we want.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Mothership Ben McCree left late from Heysham 17 minutes before 3. She won't be into Douglas for at least half an hour, 40 minutes or so. Onto the link span, then out this evening at 7:45 on time to Heysham at 11:30. The overnight departure 2:15, back to Douglas at 6. High-speed craft Manannan left Douglas at 12 minutes past 3. She'll be, she's in the Mersey right now, will be on the link span at around 6 o'clock. Departing at 7:15, back to Douglas at 10 tonight. The morning departures tomorrow. High-speed craft Manannan departs Douglas at 7:15 for Liverpool. Ben McCree departs Douglas at 8:45 for Heysham.
Like the Steam Packet on Facebook for the latest sailing information.
In the last hour, it's been confirmed that Cummal Moor residential home in Ramsey is set to close in the next 2 years. The story from Christian Jones.
Manx Care says plans to construct a new home to replace it will no longer be going ahead because residential care facilities will not be widely required in the future. It adds estimated construction costs had nearly doubled the initial estimate, with an expected spend of £13 million. We're told there will be a facility in the north in the coming years, but it's likely that Cummal Moor will be closed before this is available. The health body says there will be no immediate redundancies as a result of the decision, but stops short of revealing the extent to redundancies likely to be made further down the line. The 46-bed capacity residential home opened in late 1981 and celebrated its 40th anniversary towards the tail end of COVID-19 restrictions being enforced in 2021. Manx Care has itself acknowledged it may come as concerning news to its employees and members of the public, but believe the move will benefit residents in years to come. It's not yet clear when the facility will close its doors, but 24 months is the absolute maximum amount of time left on the clock.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 16 minutes before 6, Shell today posted a sharp fall in second quarter profits as oil and gas prices declined a year after Russia invaded Ukraine, and that sparked a surge in the cost of energy. Global oil and gas market prices have fallen from highs last year of $116 per barrel, with the average now down to $76.60 a barrel in the last quarter. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. US economic growth picked up in the spring despite a slowdown in consumer spending. The world's largest economy expanded at an annual rate of 2.4% in the 3 months to June, accelerating from 2% in the prior quarter. That was far better than expected, lifted by a jump in business investment. Consumer spending increased increased at an annual rate of 1.6%, slowing after a surge at the start of the year. Analysts have been warning of looming slowdown for months as the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, raised interest rates to try to stabilise prices, which roared ahead last year. However, businesses and households have continued to spend despite the rise in borrowing costs, confounding the expectations of forecasters.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European stock markets were higher. The dollar was on the back foot after the Fed delivered what some expected to be its last rate rise. Oil climbed and gold slipped, weighed down by an uptick in bond yields. The numbers now from Ramsey Crookall. At the close in London, the FTSE 100 was up 0.2% at 7,692. The DAX in Frankfurt up 1.7% at 16,406. The Dow Jones in New York City a short time ago up 0.1% at 35,559. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index is up 1 2/10% at 14,294. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 28.7 cents, €1 16.9 cents, and in commodities, gold's down 1 1/4% at $1,947 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up just over 1% at $83.52.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
The Isle of Man in 30 minutes. Update on Manx Radio with Andy Wint.
Faster by, good evening. Thanks for joining Manx Radio this Thursday evening on the Isle of Man. New data in the UK has revealed a sharp decline in outside play, with 2/3 of parents saying their child plays outside for less time than their generation. But despite there not being data specific to the Isle of Man, there are worries over overexposure to online media and that could be deterring children from wanting to visit traditional playgrounds. Isle of Play's chief executive is Chris Gregory. He's with play worker Brooke Harrison.
I think we're too quick at the moment to entertain them. They need to be bored to be able to understand how to use their imagination sometimes. They need to be bored and think, OK, what can I do? At home, maybe they might just always have an iPad or a TV always in front of them. But that can't always be the most stimulating thing.
The data is starting to come through now, isn't it? That we are starting to see the impact on children's mental health and physical health as a result of continuous access to screen time, and in the process the decline of children's play, like fantasy play. You know, children would take themselves off in their imaginations with other children and create fantasy worlds and engage in role play, such as, you know, classic games of like, you know, playing house or families and such. And so we are seeing a knock-on effect on that, and we see it on a daily basis. Children that are struggling with real life issues that they weren't struggling with before, and a lot of that is down to being exposed to constant online media. I can't tell you just how damaging I think the likes of these instant gratifications, it's affecting the dopamine hit effectively. So there's no deferred reward. So when you play, you don't necessarily see the benefits of play other than it's a massively enjoyable experience there and then. You won't see the benefits until it's much further down the line. It's really hard to quantify. What's happening now is that children are constantly getting a high dopamine hit by watching a short video on TikTok. Now, they're then building up a resilience level to that dopamine, and they have to go a step further and step further all the time to be able to do it, because their tolerance levels have built up so high. What can they do to get that hit? So they're constantly on it, looking for more and more and more and more and more.
Manx Radio Sport.
Faster my, Rob Pritchard.
Faster my, good evening. TT racer Jamie Coward has suffered a fractured pelvis after he was involved in a collision while cycling in the Lake District this week. That's according to his girlfriend, who's posted an update after Coward was taken to Royal Lancaster Infirmary yesterday following a collision with a car whilst the rider was on his bicycle ahead of travelling to the Armoy road races. It's currently hoped Coward will be able to recover without requiring surgery, but more details are expected to come in the next 1 or 2 days. Sophie Senior says Jamie is doing
doing okay and is thanking those who've sent messages of support, as well as the hospital staff in Lancaster. Following the incident, Coward has already been withdrawn from the Armoy road races. It's currently unclear whether he'll be fit to take part in this year's Manx Grand Prix from the 20th to the 28th of August. Elsewhere in motorsport, rider Sean Anderson has been announced as part of the Wiz Norton racing team for this year's Manx Grand Prix. The Banbridge man is joining forces with the outfit again to ride the Norton rotary machine in the classic superbike race. Anderson says, having rode the Norton a few years ago, the chance to ride it on the Isle of Man this time around was something he just could not turn down. Wiz Norton had already confirmed this week that their previous competitor in the classic superbike race, Richard Wilson, is taking some time away from the MGP this year. The team is also expected to soon announce who will represent them in the classic senior contest. And in cycling, Manx cyclist Leon Mazzoni has continued his current good form this week after securing a podium finish in the latest round of the 2023 National Circuit Series. The San Piran rider finished second during round 5 of the series in the Fort Vale Colne Grand Prix on Tuesday, with his brother Tom Mazzoni finishing 15th in the same race. Tuesday evening's result leaves Leon 6th in the men's individual standings for the series on 156. In the team classification, San Piran sit 3rd on 397. The next round of the event will be the Newark Town Centre races tomorrow.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Inbound at Ronald's Way, the 25 past 5 Loganair from Manchester came in about 10 minutes ago. Next inbound, it's the 5 to 8 Loganair from Liverpool on time. The 5 past 9 EasyJet from Manchester on time. The 8:30 Loganair from London City on time. And fingers crossed, the 25 to 9 Gatwick inbound EasyJet on time. Outbound, the 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool is on time. The 25 to 9 EasyJet back to Manchester on time, and the 5 past 9 EasyJet back to London Gatwick showing on time. The Ballymena Road in Derby's got phase closures for water main replacement. In Douglas, temporary lights on the Victoria Road at the Falconcliffe Terrace junction for water main work, and York Road's closed in Douglas between Woodburn Road and Ballaquail Road. In Farm Hill, Annika Road and Cushag Road are closed in phases. They're doing some resurfacing. In Bulgham, temporary lights on the Coast Road for wall repairs, and temporary lights in Abbeylands and St George's Bridge for cable work. Glenmona has lights on the Coast Road for patching work, and Port Cornay Road's closed for emergency road repairs. In Baldrine, Ballagorn Road's closed for drainage work. Gradle Road, Onken, closed between Harbour Road and Fairway, closed for gas upgrade work. And in Foxdale, Garth Road closed between Tossaby Road and the Foxdale Road for bridge replacement work. In St John's, the bottom end of Archalligan Road has reopened ahead of schedule. Hooray! And East Quay and Peel's closed between the House of Manannan and the road bridge for work on road and pavement.
H&HMotorcycles.im for all your motorcycle requirements. Southgate Industrial Estate, opposite Quayside Tyres. Call 665646.
It's a vexed question for many people. A Tynwald committee has been wrestling with the concept of adverse possession in terms of land ownership and whether it's an outdated concept. The Legal Affairs and Justice Committee heard evidence on the matter from the Registrar General, Ed Clegg, and the Land Registrar, James Lowry.
It's not dispossessing people of land. What essentially we're saying with adverse possession is a parcel of land here which has been abandoned. And somebody's come and said, I've occupied that land without secrecy, I've occupied that land exclusively, and I've occupied that land without challenge. So once you can establish that, then you establish an adverse possession on it. Now, we can talk about the finer points around that, but ultimately it's not about sort of saying, Mr. Peters, I want your house, I'm going to dispossess you of it. You know, ultimately, Mr. Peters, you bought this land 30 years ago, you haven't been on it since. In the last 21 years, I've fenced this land, I've improved this land. So I'm not quite clear what you mean by trying to dispossess somebody from land. It's ultimately saying land that's been abandoned has now been adversely possessed and putting that into a fallen situation.
It's adverse in that, what we're actually doing is that we're saying that a trespasser who decides to come and mess around with your property has got rights, and that just doesn't seem fair, does it?
But going back to your scenario of your wildflower meadow, to sort of say, as James sort of said, you would hope that if you hadn't abandoned it, if you were going down there every weekend and communing with nature, you would notice if somebody had replaced the fences or done things like that. So it's not that land has to be abandoned, and 21 years that land, somebody has to say for 21 years I've possessed that land exclusively, without challenge and without secrecy. So it is quite a high threshold.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
A gift card scheme which the Manx government launched to try and boost hospitality on the Isle of Man post-COVID is being scrapped. People with Love Isle of Man cards will have until the end of July next year to spend their balances with the 65 merchants that signed up. Chair of the Licensed Victuallers Association, Andy Saunders, says the initiative won't be missed by many businesses.
It was a rather rushed idea when brought out, going right back into the depths of the pandemic, and not something that the trade as a whole was overly supportive of or thought was useful. When it was relaunched for winter of 2022-23, there was some success with it, I thought. It did have a bit more uptake and a bit more use for the Manx public and the hospitality business overall, but really it wasn't the most successful of ways to support our local economy. I think there's definitely better ways to invest public funds into promoting our entertainment sector and our late night sector, which I know is something which the government have, after many years of us trying to campaign that it was needed to be supported and to be encouraged, that the government have realised that they really need to look into making the hospitality sector on the Isle of Man more vibrant in whatever ways they can help by supporting private enterprise and private funding, because it's all part of one of the major reasons why we have trouble attracting people to the island and why we have trouble retaining our younger people. The Domestic Event Fund is going to be initiated as a full-time scheme. It's quite useful, but it would be useful also for the government to maintain the small business area of that, as well as for the large domestic events. And it really is a case of encouraging people to get out and about and get round the towns and see what's going on, and to encourage, once people are out and about, then the spend does come naturally as they flow around the towns and villages and so on.
That's it for Update tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Chanel Suku, producer Rhianne Evans. Stick around, Shackley with Bobby Bob John Billy after 6. Ruth's here with the greatest hits at 6:30. Morris Powell with light music at 9, and Rhianne at 10.
WINT.